Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities, and we do this a number of ways. This show is one of them. We also have a Facebook group committed to spiritual growth and transformation, and we'd love to have you join us at liveauthentically.today/FB. Also, check out my first book, my debut book, Soar, SOAR. It's on Amazon, and it shows how I partnered with the universe to create my new reality. So we have a great show planned for you guys today. I have Geoff Fitch with me. Hey, Geoff.
Hi, good to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you taking the time. So I'm super excited to hear about everything that you do. Geoff facilitates growth in individuals and organizations, and he's going to tell us all about that today. But first, he is going to tell us how he lives authentically every day.
Oh yeah, thank you for that question. It's such a deep question. It's one of those um questions that to me is more of a lifelong inquiry than a question that really has an answer. And in our work, one of the things that we work with is that this kind of larger understanding of human development that kind of goes from birth to enlightenment. And one of the things that happens in all of that is that we're continuously, you know, um, shifting and evolving our view of who we are and what the world is and what that question is, what it means to be live authentically. So it's a kind of really deep question for me. And one of the core practices is truthfulness for me,
Mhm.
which is being truthful with myself and with others and with life, seeing where in life I'm moving against reality and where I'm moving with it. And reality includes this and what I'm up to and what I care about in the world. So it's really that kind of fine tuning and always being in the question about where, where things are in alignment and where they aren't,
Mhm.
and then also living authentically is a relational practice. A lot of the work that we do is in the domain of human relationships and group life and how we come together. And so to me, a kind of core piece of living authentically is you might call being in dialogue, being in relationship and exploring in that relationship what is really the truth for you and for the other person and for the circumstances that you're in. So it's important to be not just for me to kind of sit in my room here and answer that question, but to be in relationship with that question.
I love that. Thank you for that answer. And so, was there a particular event or moment in your life where you felt like you wanted to take it in a different direction? When you said, I need to start living more authentically, or I want to embark on the path of growth?
Yes, that's. I thought you might ask me that question. I've been kind of thinking about it a little bit. There's some really major events, of course, where my life took big turns, and also small events where things just kind of sparked and opened and stayed with me.
Mhm.
Um, I would say like I I've been doing this work. I work as a facilitator and teacher and coach and therapist, and really in any context that, where I can work with people really deeply. And
Mhm.
I've been doing this work for about 20 years. But earlier in my life, I worked as an executive and as a manager and as an engineer in the technology world. So what happened? you know how
Yeah.
did that happen? Well, and that was what I would say. So to answer your question, I'd say two ways. One is that the seeds for the work that I do now were really planted really early in my life. I've always been really interested in in kind of the bigger questions about life and what we're up to and how we evolve and how we wake up and grow up and become who we're meant to be. Those questions really started early on in my life, and I've been a meditator and a practitioner of different methods of growth since I was a teenager. But I
Oh,
went off on this path of kind of living the life my father wanted me to live, and that I kind of
Mhm.
brought in from the conventional world until it wasn't true for me anymore. And in my, kind of, I guess around when I was in my early 40s, I shifted into this work, right? I realigned my life to be really true to what I'm here to do, and live from a sense of deeper purpose. But
Mhm.
that shift was, that could be a whole book in itself, because that's a kind of major shift to make in your life. And there were things that I did to make that happen, and things that also happened to me, and things that I had to undo to make navigate that transition. And a lot of my work now is helping people make that transition, as I imagine it is for you too.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's really interesting. I just find it to be so fascinating how the universe just so carefully crafts and appoints certain circumstances and experiences as opportunities for us to find our purpose, as opportunities for us to step into bigger things, as opportunities for us to see the world through new lenses. Because without some of my earlier painful experiences, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today.
Right.
And it is interesting how when you start to look back and you start to connect the dots and see the golden thread running through all of the events in your life, it really does leave clues as to what we're really here to do. And so,
Mm.
that said, why do you believe we're here on this earth?
Uh, you know, here's how I engage in that question, right? Is in my work, what I see is that there's a kind of, um, the more we kind of go deeper into our own experience of what wants to move through us in life, the more that question just reveals itself. And
Mhm.
and it and it to me, what I've seen is it reveals itself in a way that we all share in common, but that's also really unique to each individual in its form. So if I sense into that, there is a kind of process of waking up, that and evolving and becoming, um, a kind of higher being, you could say,
Mhm.
or a more awake, conscious, um, ethical, um, loving, that when the conditions are right, that naturally flourishes in people. And now it's kind of, now having said that, I think, some people might think I'm crazy, because you look out at the world and that's not what's happening in a lot of places. Um, but my experience is that the more you get to know someone, and the more you see what really truly wants to open in them, there is a natural expression of that, of our evolving nature. So
Mhm.
I try not to think about it in terms of belief, like what I believe we're here for, because then it starts to get too conceptual for me. I
Mhm.
like to get, I like to listen to people and listen to that evolutionary impulse in them, and just witness it. And
Mhm.
when you do that, you start to see, maybe we're here to actually discover and express our higher nature.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And how do you respond to people who are fearful of stepping into growth?
Mm. Um, First, I would say, it depends on the person, but I would say, well, let me ask you, what kind of fear can you say more about that? Like, let's imagine together that what that fear might be. What might
Yeah,
that fear be?
sure. Like maybe fear of change, right? Fear of
Yeah,
if I choose growth, my life is going to look different.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, well, I'll come back to that time in my life when that change happened in my life. And so the first thing as I would say, is like, I avoided it as long as I possibly could. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm being a bit flip about it, but I took my time, and eventually things unraveled enough that I had no choice but to
Mhm.
step into what's next. Things unraveled in the sense of my own inner sense of what I was up to in the world and how I made sense of the world, and my values and assumptions about the world just started to become less and less relevant. But there was a period of time where I kind of knew this was coming, and I had a sense of wanting something different. But I wasn't ready to really just say, okay, let's just quit my job and start something new and change everything. So
Mhm.
there's a natural time, I think, and there's I would say I would respect the fear.
Yeah.
There's change does have an impact, and
Mhm.
it takes time to really come into relationship to what wants to emerge in us, what wants to unfold in us, and to go through that process. So
Mhm.
it's and it's also what can be really helpful is like you're doing and like we're doing. You can understand kind of what the markers of those changes are. You can encounter and meet people who have gone through that. You can understand how to navigate that, and what the practices are, and how to take care of yourself. It's part of our culture is not really set up for that,
Right.
right? So our culture is not set up to help us go through developmental growth, and
Right.
yet it's happening all over the place. We're
Mhm.
still stuck with this kind of old narrative which says, you go to school, you finish your education, you go out and get a job, you get married, and you find a place to live. And then I don't know what happens after that, but then at some point you retire. You just
Yeah.
sort of live your
Yeah.
life, whatever you do,
Yeah.
raise your kids. But there's this kind of, there isn't this kind of framework of adult development. And we know from research and practice and experience that people grow and change all of the time. So we
Mhm.
have to kind of construct our own support systems for that because society isn't set up for it.
Right, absolutely. And there are so many fear-based underpinnings, but I think the first important awareness is that, we don't have to fear the fear, right? We're meant to feel the fear. The fear is
Yeah.
there to serve us and to
Yes.
help us grow and evolve as long as we don't allow it to keep us stuck, right? As
Mm-hmm.
long as we can allow it to empower us to ask questions. Like I always say, like, get curious.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is my knee-jerk reaction fear? Right? Like, why in this, what about this situation makes me uncomfortable? Right? What
That's
is the
right.
worst that can happen? Then when you start digging deeper, then you realize that like fear is just made up, right? It's fictitious. It's something that we make up in our minds. But but we also have to honor the feeling and honor that it's there, and there is a way to transmute. I mean, that's when we really step into our personal power, as you know, is when we can take that fear and transmute that into
Right.
something that fuels our growth and evolution.
That's right. You touched on a couple of things which I think are really important. And one is the value of seeing your own experience not as something that gets in the way of anything, but the path itself. So I think that's really valuable. Like that it's part of, if we want to head somewhere, there's a version of us that's evolving towards that, and the path of getting there is also the work itself. So whatever's coming
Yeah.
up is worth exploring. Um, and Yeah, and the other thing that you said about transmuting the fear is, in a way, it's pointing to something, and what we need to discern is if it's something to transmute, to release, or something to respect and to say, oh, I'm afraid if I go through this change, I might lose interest in my career, and then I'd have to start something new, and I'm not sure I can afford that. That's all pointing to something to care for. That's if you want to go through a change in life, you need a support system and care for it, and you need to,
Mhm.
you know, have the things in place to support you during that process. So it can be pointing to something useful, um, and it's right. It is ultimately, as we wake up from it, we can see the illusory nature of it.
Yeah.
That these are stories and constructs that we're creating, and to decide what we do with that, with those dreams that we're dreaming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to echo what you talked about earlier in terms of like the experience, having the experience. These life experiences are meant to propel us on our journey. And I remember a conversation I had with one of my clients one time, and he's like my life, all these events, the stuff going on in my life is like getting in the way of my spiritual growth. And I'm like,
Mm,
no, it's integrated, that this is your spiritual growth. This is fertile ground for your spiritual growth. So when we understand that truth, that all of our life experiences, positive, challenging, whatever it is, they're there as an opportunity to fuel our
yeah,
growth and evolution. But we have to make the choice. So I'd love to
yeah,
hear you talk a little bit about this whole concept of choice around life experiences, and how we have the choice to either stay stuck in our
mm,
comfortable normal reality, or choose a different path.
mm, mm, yeah. That's a big question. It's you said earlier, like you said something earlier about how, like, it's amazing how life provides all of these things that participate in our growth, and that there's a golden thread to all of these events that seem to set up like our unfolding, right? which is
Yeah.
which is taking a perspective on this, that's participatory, right? It's not just a matter of choice, right? It's like all of a sudden something says, okay, Pamela, okay, Geoff, everything's changed now. And you have to
Mhm.
move with it. And then inside of that, there's this other perspective, which is that we're choosing as we go through it. And I, both seem really worth honoring and respecting in this. I think that that the the power of choice is that when you see the choice, that you can take it. When you see a choice before you,
Mhm.
that you actually can mobilize your energy towards what you want. And and so what I would say for anybody listening to this that sees a choice in front of them, they know it's there. They know in their gut, like, oh yeah, I can choose that. That you can mobilize your energy toward it. You have the power to move towards what you want.
Mhm.
The What I'm saying sounds very simple, but I'm saying it this way because there's other contexts where we don't actually see the choice, right? And we have to stay in that. We have to explore and be in conversation and inquire to what's in our way of actually seeing the choice before us, right? So
Mhm.
it's easy to just say to somebody who's stuck, oh, you have a choice, but they might not see the choice.
Right.
So but that moment where you see it, that's the moment of power, where you
Mhm.
actually see it, and you go like, I'll wait till tomorrow.
Mhm.
No, that's the moment to really be honest with yourself and step into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So those are some thoughts I have about that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I
Yeah.
agree that the choices may not always be readily apparent to someone, when they're feeling stuck, but
Yeah.
I firmly believe that we always have a choice, regardless of what's going on around us. We always have a choice in how we how we respond to the events of life. And I
Yes.
think that we can choose. We can choose our state of being. We can choose our energy. And I was telling this to someone yesterday, every once in a while people will ask me like, don't you ever have a bad day? Like, what's up with this like happy, shiny, positive energy all the time? And like, it's real, it's authentic. Like,
Hmm.
I'm genuinely happy.
Hmm.
I mean, do I have my moments? Yeah, absolutely. Do I get emotional?
Yes.
Do I get stressed? Do I get frustrated? But the difference is, and as I've unpacked this, is that I don't live a conditional life. So my
Hmm.
reactions, my responses, my state of being, the energy with which I show up, is not conditional based on my external surroundings. I don't give
Hmm.
anything or anyone else that much power. It's not conditional upon how someone is treating me. I get to
Yeah.
choose that. And that is true
Yeah.
for every one of us, right? We get
Yeah.
to choose to show up empowered and kind and patient and at peace and accepting and in the
Yeah.
flow. Right. When
Yeah.
we're constantly reacting to the events of life, when the vast majority of our energetic vibration is comprised of reactionary things,
Hmm.
that makes for a very chaotic world. And no wonder people are feeling, stuck and depressed and frustrated and exhausted. Like when you're constantly just being pulled in different directions and having knee jerk reaction, well, yeah, that stands to reason. My
Yes.
point is like there's a different way to do it. You can choose. We can choose our state of being in every moment by, like you said, changing the point of focus, right? The object of attention, right? Where we
Yeah.
put our energy. We can
Yeah.
focus on something to be grateful for, focus on the abundance in our life. And then that's the energy from which the universe, the law of attraction builds upon.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's powerful, Pamela. And it's so true. And it's really, there's there's an understanding of this in the science now too, in neuroscience, that we can cultivate, you could say, positive states. We can cultivate through our own practice, our own will, and our own choices, those qualities or those states of mind or states of being. Yeah, that's one of the things that I think is really powerful about what you're saying. And then also that there's you said something of living, not living conditionally, right? Which is to say, there's something in your the way I would phrase what you're saying, is there something in what you're saying that you see your own your own consciousness as the source or the ground of your experience.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's the sort of waking up process, which is really, really profoundly important for us, which is to, over time to cultivate through our own awareness and practice of, of awakening, you could say, a, a greater understanding and a greater um, awareness of how we construct our experience, our reality.
Mhm.
And and so that's the other part of what you said, which I really, really appreciate, and which is really central to our work as well. And the only thing that I would say that's maybe a kind of um, caution is when, if part of the work that we do is we also really value what we call like shadow work, which is that sometimes it's really important to work in that kind of unconscious, to uncover what's unseen, the disowned parts of ourselves. And for a period of time, avoiding those, or trying to transcend those unpleasant feelings and experiences, can also be a way to avoid seeing that shadow. So to me, like, there's also a role in our wholeness to include both the light and the dark. But that doesn't discount anything that you said, or that we're talking about, also about
Right.
transcending. It's really both. It's about including all of our experience, but also, not being at the effect of it,
Right.
being
Absolutely.
free of it too.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
precisely as you described what authenticity is
Yeah.
integrating, right? The light
Yes,
and the dark, and
exactly. Yeah.
accepting the wholeness of who we are, and
Yeah.
yeah, just doing that in an integrated way.
Yeah.
So
Thank
let's
you.
thank you. So let's I love, we can talk about, it sounds great to, oh, we'll just pick a higher state of being. We'll just pick a higher energy. I'll just choose happiness in this moment. But you know what? In reality, it doesn't really work that way all the time, right? We've all been in situations where we felt stuck, we felt overwhelmed, we felt despondent, whatever it is. So
Yes.
what do you suggest? What is one small way that someone can make a shift if they're feeling like they're at rock bottom right now? What is one small thing they can do right now in order to
Yeah.
start to make the shift and put their energy towards more transformative and productive places?
I got something really small, which is, since you said one small thing, but it's really powerful, which is to work with the breath. So uh, if you if you open your breath a little bit and allow the breath to fill your body a little bit more, you'll notice maybe there's kind of a way we're holding our breath. So if you open the breath and allow yourself to breathe a bit more deeply, and then exhale fully but more slowly than you are, this will calm the nervous system. So this is a really simple but powerful nervous system regulation. So this is a bigger topic, but if you're in a difficult moment and struggling with something, what's happening is, at one level, is that your nervous system is um, dysregulated or activated. So
Mhm.
you're in fight, flight, freeze kind of situation, and you can use the breath to regulate your nervous system, and that'll have you come into a more safe and connected kind of state.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. It's very, yeah, very powerful. And I'm glad that you said that because breath is something that is obviously accessible, it's transportable, it can come with us anywhere.
Yeah.
It's something that's available to us at a moment's notice.
Yes.
So I would love to see everyone just at least try to be a little bit more conscious of that tool, that healing modality that's right there in front of us every day.
Okay, I'll say one more thing.
Yeah.
Think of somebody in your life that you trust and reached out to them. Somebody that you feel willing to share what's going on with you and reach out to them and just have a conversation. So soothing the nervous system and connecting with others is a really good starting point.
Yeah, it sure is. Thank you.
And there's 10,000 things you can do beyond that, but you said what's one simple thing, and that's where I would start.
Yeah, I just wanted one simple thing because I feel like sometimes, it sucks to feel stuck, right? I mean, I've been there before and you want to know like you can't even possibly see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? How do I get
Yeah.
there? That feels overwhelming to contemplate. It feels daunting to entertain.
Mhm.
But, we've got to start somewhere, right? We have to start in
Mhm.
that the best place to do that is where you are right now.
Yeah.
So accepting that you are where you are for a reason. I don't believe in any coincidences. I believe that we are meant to, if you're feeling uncomfortable, I believe that you're meant to be feeling the uncomfortableness and really lean into that. Lean into that, accept that, and don't look back, no regrets, no guilt. Just put your boat in the stream right where you are, put your oars in the water, and just start paddling forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really great. And obviously, if someone is in crisis, to seek support for that, to seek, um, you
Absolutely.
know, me, uh, medical support or therapist or something like that. It's really important to have all of the support that you can muster. I know that's not available to everybody, but this is a really big piece too. I'm sure that's been true for you,
Absolutely.
for me, since day one.
Mhm.
There's been so many teachers and therapists and people who've supported me in my own growth, and that's really an essential piece to find a transformative relationship in your
Yeah.
life. Yeah, to go deeper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that, because I think that so many times people feel like they need to bear the burden alone. They need to do this on their own. But,
Yeah, yeah.
nobody ever said we need to do life on our own, right? Nobody ever said we needed to do this thing solo. We are in a world with tons of resources, right? It's okay to ask. And that's the main message I want people to take away from
Yeah,
this portion
yeah,
of our discussion. Ask for help. It's
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Not only it's okay, it's actually necessary.
yeah,
And it really is a win-win, because it gives the other person, the other side, an opportunity to step
yes,
into their healing role
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah. I was chuckling a little bit because I know what you're saying when you say nobody said we have to do it alone. But the other side of that is like, you know, everybody's saying that we have to do it alone. It's a message that we hear all over the place, and it's really rooted in our culture. And it's a deep part of the work that we do, and that I'm inspired to do, is actually to cultivate community and to cultivate
Mhm.
connection and safety and transformative practice in our communities, because I think a big piece of what we're needing to do in the world today is to come back together and to, to move through the alienation that we have from each other. Just a simple thing of like, I need help.
Mhm.
This is something that, that's not available, just those words, to so
Right.
many people. And when you cultivate deep community together, there's so much richness that's available.
Mhm.
Um, it, in that kind of connection. So find one person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So we've got a few more minutes before we wrap up, but I wanted to just give you an opportunity now to have the stage and talk about whatever you would like to, whether it's something specific, anything specific to your practices, your business, etc., or if you would like to just end with some words of wisdom, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Pamela. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the conversation and the back and forth, and just kind of hearing from you and getting to know you a little bit, and being in these important, explorations. I think the thing that I would say is that, um, one thing I would say is that our work has been really motivated by the impulse towards personal growth and personal transformation, but it's also really motivated by a sense that in our larger human system and our planetary system, that we're in a time of transformation, that there's a potent energy, that there's a potent um, set of forces that are working us at an ecological, as a planetary, as a human social system level. And that's really our impulse to wake up and grow up and become who we're meant to be now isn't just personal, it's also species level. And so our work and my work is also really about creating the world that we want, not just the life that we want. And so I want to speak to that, because I know that's in the hearts of a lot of people, and I want to invite everyone to like trust your knowing about that, and trust your own vision of the world that you want to create, and help us all create it together, not just our personal world, but our planet, the way we're living in relationship to nature and to each other, and all of the challenges that we face today. So that's one thing that I want to say. And about our work, if something I said inspires you, come check us out. We You can find my work and the work of the rest of us here at pacificintegral.com. And I'd love to hear from anybody who'd like to be in touch with us and see what we're up to.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that and for being on my show today. I so appreciate it. I've loved every minute of our discussion. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, have a
You're
wonderful
welcome.
day, and everyone who's listening, enjoy your day.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to our audience, our viewers and listeners. I so appreciate you, and so appreciate you showing up all the time with an open heart and an open mind, ready to learn and grow. So everyone, on that note, we will say farewell. Bye for now and have a wonderful weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye.